Good Friday afternoon, morning, or evening. Is it still Friday morning in some places? If you're in Hawaii, it could still be Friday morning. Oh, let's get rid of that. There we go.
It's any time of the day somewhere.
It is, unless it's not today.
Of a day.
Of a day.
Someday.
But it is a day. Hi, by the way, my name is Darren. This over here is Victor. And we are the co-hosts. It is you. It is you. We are the co-host of a podcast called DevOps Paradox. And on Fridays, we do DevOps Paradox Live, which basically means no editing after the fact, which means less work for me. Thank you very much. And this week, there's more freedom for you, less work for me, even though there's still some work. But here's the thing. We saw lots of news come out this week, a couple of big items from GitHub that we're going to get to in just a minute. But just in case you don't know the routine, get your drink out. Wait, where is it? And I can't see you right now. So I've got my grapefruit.
I'm sleepy, so I'm pumping myself with Red Bull.
Right. Okay, so you're still sleepy. It is currently 7 p.m. where you are. When does your time change?
I don't know.
You don't know? It's going to be happening soon. Yeah, we need to figure that out probably pretty soon because in the States, time changes November 1st, which is coming up very, very fast. So get your drink out, sit back. We're probably not going to be as good as the greatest Netflix shows, but you may like it anyway. This week, on this week's podcast episode that came out on Wednesday, was episode number 76, How to be a Cloud Engineer with Pulumi. I keep messing up the names. Joe, I'm sorry if you're watching this on replay because I know you're probably still getting over your conference for the past 2 days. Pulumi. So we had Joe Duffy, who's the CEO of Pulumi, on with us. If you haven't had a chance to go listen to it yet, go take a listen to it. I am a Pulumi fanboy. Victor likes it, appreciates it, but we'll just stick with Terraform. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
For now, right? For now. Even though you did admit that you were doing bad things inside of Terraform, like conditionals.
Yeah, I'm just waiting, kind of like trying to figure out where am I gonna do more bad things.
Yeah. Hey Neil, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Thanks for showing up live with us today, and for everybody else that's here live. If you're actually new here, go ahead and type new over in the comments, and we'll give you a shout out. Let me go ahead and get all of the other things set up here. So I have to share this screen. You would think by now I'd have a much easier way of doing this, but unfortunately I do not. So let's get into the news for the week. And I changed up a bunch of stuff. By the way, in case if you want to listen to the podcast from this past week with Joe, DevOpsParadox.com/76 will get you there. But now let's get into, last week GitHub announced their integrations, right? I don't even remember the news that we had for last week. I'd have to pull it back up. But then they announced even more this week to where basically third-party analysis tools are now integratable. You can see down here from the picture, you got checkmarks, Synopsys, Veracode, some that I don't know the logo for. I like this little guy here though. Everybody else is big words, but now we have a shiny little logo and a couple of those here, but he's happy. How big of a deal is this?
You know what's missing over there in that picture with the logos?
What?
Sneak.
True that. All right.
Sneak is missing.
Okay.
Patrick is gonna be mad.
Well, okay, so they would fall into this developer security side. I don't think Sneak really falls into static analysis. Do they?
They do kind of, but from security perspective, right?
Yeah.
So typically when we say static analysis, we mean kind of, hey, you forgot to put comments in your above your function, right? They don't do that. They do from security perspective.
Yeah. But anyway, I think this is a big deal. I don't know that it's a huge deal, but it's a big deal. Because now there's this marketplace, which has been there, but now you could, if you've been using check marks, or if you've been using Code Scan, or if you've been using Fortify, you don't have to do that anymore. Right? If you're having to do, if you're self-managing it, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And this is the part of the news. So I like the previous news when they announced those things.
Yeah.
But previously I was under impression that they're relying on their own stuff. Being able to integrate with others is actually a very, very good thing. Because ultimately, companies don't change their tools from one day to another. But being able to simplify whatever they're using, whichever from that list, that's a big thing.
Yep. It'd be interesting to see. I read through this, but I don't remember if this is going to apply to their enterprise product or not. I don't know why it would even matter for enterprise. I'm thinking on-prem enterprise, not. So this is primarily just for the .com. So.
And it will. So the thing is that the way how products like GitHub work is that when you have both SaaS and self-managed, usually you release something in SaaS first, because that's much easier for you to control, to see what's going on. And then a while later, you would enable that feature for self-managed as well. Simply for practical reasons, it makes much more sense to write it first in SaaS. Make sure that works. Because SaaS is a single use case in a way from setup perspective, right? And then self-managed can be many, many different things.
Right. So does it work? If I can get it working with SaaS, at least I know I've covered 30%. I've at least got most of the rough edges off.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the sharp edges. You may still have rough edges, but the sharp edges are probably gone. So this is cool. Now, there was one other item that we called out right before the show, is now the GitHub docs are now open source.
That's really cool.
Why do you think it's cool?
Actually, I said that's really cool. Now I'm thinking whether it's cool, because I'm starting to shift my opinion towards open source slowly. Kind of, if it's a service, then I don't know if anybody cares anymore. I think that it's very important whether it's open source or no when it's self-managed. But then when it's a service, then at least I stop questioning, hey, is it open source or not open source? It's a service, I don't know, like GitHub, right? It's a service. I don't really care that much whether GitHub itself is open source or not. I like the service, I use the service, period, right? When it comes to me installing something, then that becomes more relevant. Now, GitHub Docs, I'm not sure how much anybody is going to do anything with it outside of it already being part of GitHub.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just a matter of you're reading the docs and you see something misspelled. Now you can just put a PR in instead of having to open an issue. That's worth it.
Oh, you mean
right?
To the docs of the docs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To docs. Yeah. It's I don't see anything wrong with it. I think it's a good thing.
No.
And it also proves that documentation should be under source control and not in a Word document. Did I say that out loud?
Absolutely. But that might be the most challenging part, because the percentage of non-technical people in documentation is potentially higher than in any other area, right? We have technical writers who might not actually be really engineers. We have marketing people who also might not be engineers. And when somebody's not engineer and you say Git, they say, what?
Yeah. They give you the puppy dog look. They sort of turn the head to the side. I know what.
Then you start explaining kind of, 2 times asterisk means bold, 1 time asterisk means italic, and they say, really? What's wrong with that button B?
It's one of those days, right? Hey guys, new to the live podcast, a huge fan. Oh, thanks. We have one huge fan. This is great.
Hey.
We have one huge fan.
I don't know. It's I don't see. It's not a full picture, and there is nobody around him, so I don't know whether he's huge or not. It's hard to deduce based on the picture. Okay, I'm inspired.
All complaints go to vfarsec on Twitter. Have a nice day. Okay, next one up: Helm repo changes and the demise of version 2. Finally. Well, I say demise. It's not really demised. It's just end of support. So what's wait, that was supposed to have already been done. What's the big deal about this? Besides the obvious.
I don't think it's a big deal. It will not, the world will not end. Nothing will really disappear. People will be able to use Helm 2 as they were using before. It's just that it's acknowledgement. Hey, we're not going to invest time in Helm 2 anymore. And that's a good thing, because then they can invest time in things that matter more. And that's additional incentive for the few of you who are still using Helm 2 to go to 3.
Yep.
Well, many companies, we had those things. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, go ahead.
But you know those situations when we visit a company and they tell us that they're finally going to have to upgrade the operating system after 10 years, and you ask why now, and they say, yeah, because Microsoft just said that it's end of life. Kind of, without that, they would not upgrade next 20 years.
Well, exactly. And we run into that on a near weekly basis. I was going to say daily, but that's not that extreme. But it's not abnormal to run into that. But this first sentence, the stable and incubator, which incubator I don't care so much about, but the stable Helm chart repositories and all Helm-related images will no longer be available from GCR. I think this is the big deal.
That's a big deal.
When you wake up on the 13th and all of your stuff stops deploying.
Okay, no, wait. Nothing will stop deploying.
Okay, fair enough.
It will be deprecated, meaning it will still be there, but it will be in read-only mode, meaning that whomever was contributing and maintaining those charts will not be able to do that there anymore.
Yes.
But they will not disappear. They will not be removed.
Correct. But then the second part of this sentence, all Helm-related images are going to be taken away from GCR. That's the mic drop moment.
That's the part I don't understand and I don't agree with. But to begin with, I honestly don't know what is the percentage of images used in charts in the stable channel that are using GCR or not, right? Like the few that I submitted or contributed to, they were never in GCR anyways. Because when you publish a chart, it can be anywhere. It could be Docker Hub, it could be Amazon registry, it could be anything, right?
Yep. So none of that really mattered. But if you haven't looked at that, if you haven't read through this post, in fact, all the links to all the things that we go through today will be down in the description below, or if you're watching on the website and the replay, you'll see it down in the show notes. I think this is when they walk you through a readiness checklist and all the other things. Fortunately, it's not like 15 steps. It's only like really one step unless you're running Helm 2. So,
yeah.
You okay out there? Sounds like the world's ending there. Are you out of coffee? Is that an alcohol run for somebody? I'm not sure which it is. But anyway, it's if you haven't read this, you need to probably at least be aware, especially if you're not aware of it. Now, next one up, Rancher 2.5 released this week. Now, I believe it was Neil that was on a few weeks ago that really liked, I was trying to remember the right word, but liked our recommendation of going with Rancher since he was stuck with on-prem. But with 2.5, there were 3 big things here that were called out. I'm going to start with the middle one first. full lifecycle chaos clusters. I think that's the big one. I haven't tried it yet. I'm still trying to get my head around it. It's basically just the control plane over the control plane. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, if I would be decision maker in Rancher, I would not put much effort into it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know exact plans of AWS, but maybe tomorrow or maybe a month from now or maybe a year from now, they will come up with their own similar feature and kill the Rancher one, right? The same thing is the usage of COPS dropped drastically when EKS appeared. It was worse than COPS, but then it's a service provided by Amazon. You're an Amazon user. Why wouldn't you use their service? Over time, EKS improved, and the need for COPS continued dropping, right? I know that there are some users of COPS, but that's not even close to what it was before.
Yep.
So, if there is sorry.
No, go ahead.
Now, if there is a playing field for Rancher, I believe that's either self-managed Kubernetes clusters or the situations in which you have Kubernetes clusters spanning multiple vendors.
Right, which goes back to this first column.
Yeah.
Because that's the reason why this is interesting, but this is the big one, which is the reason why I believe they listed it first. Number one, I would like to have enough money to be able to spin up 1 million clusters to test this out. Because why did they pick 1 million? Why not 1,000,001 or whatever it is? But
maybe that's how far their budget for testing went.
Yeah, and then they ran out. Yeah. It looks. I mean, this is a pretty big deal.
Yes.
Is it bigger than a big deal? Are we sort of underselling it?
I mean, I think that the playing field for multi-cluster is still very shallow. I don't think that any of the big three of the cloud hosting vendors have really good solutions for that. Google is going back and forth with Anthos. We don't really know yet what it is. Amazon is not really even trying, I think. So that's a big opportunity, I think. More than one cluster.
And the third one that they called out here was basically built for U.S. government agencies. They have RKE government. So it's hardened, FIPS enabled, blah, 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 whatever that is. I mean, I know what it is, but it doesn't affect most of us. Unless you're working with the U.S. government and watching this, make sure you're not on the VPN right now. But then going back to what Neil just posted in here, he just upgraded yesterday to 2.51 with the biggest challenge was the way they do backups. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the backup process is. Neil, if you want to drop that in, I don't know if they were using Valero or not, or what was that change that caused your biggest issue. And it's also very interesting that 2.51 actually is already out. I haven't kept up with the patch releases. I didn't realize it had come out already. But, that's to be expected. And we'll come back to, once Neil puts some stuff in, we'll come back to that. I'm going to go ahead and move on. Nope, that's not moving on. That is moving on. Introducing the DigitalOcean app platform. This feels like something that has been around for 10 years. Oh, wait, it has been. This is...
Does it start with H?
It starts with Heroku. Yes, it does. I have not had time to test this out yet. But based on what I've been seeing other people talk about, a modern PaaS today. So let's get down here. Fully managed, thumbs up. We like that. It supports Python, Node, Go, PHP, Ruby, Hugo, and static sites. Well, I don't see Java on there, so you leave me out. You can deploy source code directly from your GitHub repositories. GitLab and Bitbucket coming soon. Good idea. Those are the big three. Can you think of another SCM provider that isn't those three?
Nah, that's probably like 90-something%.
Yeah, okay. And then this final bullet, which I would have expected this to have probably been the first bullet. The app platform is one of the few PaaS products built on a shared Kubernetes platform. Now, what makes me scared with this phrasing is shared Kubernetes platform. What could go wrong with that?
First of all, I haven't had time to really try it out much, so I'm more based on the information I read and what I saw and what's not. First of all, I don't really care that it's based on Kubernetes because I don't have access to that Kubernetes. I don't really do anything Kubernetes-like with that platform that I've seen. So the fact that I do something completely different, but there is Kubernetes below, is useless information to me to begin with. Right? I care if it's Kubernetes in terms that can I leverage some of my Kubernetes skills. If I can leverage none of my Kubernetes skills or material, then it doesn't matter. It could be, I don't know, hamsters running in wheels around and making it happen. Doesn't matter, really. Now, that being said, right, if it was Kubernetes and it simplifies somehow Kubernetes, then I would be up for it. Great, right? Now, this looks and feels as a completely new platform of sorts. And the chances that I will invest in DigitalOcean are very, very low. Invest time, right? Kind of writing something specifically for DigitalOcean. If I can use my, I don't know, let's say Kubernetes manifests in DigitalOcean, great. But if I'm going to dedicate and redesign my systems around DigitalOcean, that's never going to happen. Simply, they're too small for me to warrant such investment. Right? AWS can allow that, right? Because they're here to stay. They're a company people use, people trust. DigitalOcean is too small to insist on their own way of doing stuff.
Yeah. So it appears interesting. Their pricing is on par with what Heroku charges. I think Heroku's pricing is at $7. Theirs is at $5. Yeah, okay. Or if you want to do static sites, it's free. You can build and deploy 3 static sites for free on the starter tier, and each additional static site will be charged $3 a month. So really right now they're just looking at static sites. Well, why do I need Kubernetes to run a static site? Hello? Static. But we'll see how that goes, and we'll talk some more about that in a few minutes. But this is the thing that this is first pass, right? So right now they're only deploying into Frankfurt, New York City, and Amsterdam, which is fine. You got to start somewhere, right? Those are their big ones, if I remember correctly.
I mean, I was too harsh. It's a good thing. I just want to make clear that to me this feels like a very, very good thing for individuals.
Yeah.
Or for very, very small teams, right?
Yes.
So if you're 1 person, 5 people, hey, go for it. You don't have such complexity. So, anyways, anything that offers good conditions is good. Beyond that,
well, it may be. So if it's really simplistic, now let's ignore some of the technical biases that we have right now. If this was going back to what they were saying down here, between 6 to 8 million businesses are started every year. Well, if you're doing something retail, you're probably not going to go to AWS. That's going to be off the list. You might go to Google, you might go to Azure, but if you're starting out as a startup and your costs really matter, you don't want to feel the pain of all that. You look at Heroku, but then you realize Heroku is backed by one of the largest companies in the world, Salesforce. Then looking at DigitalOcean as sort of hey, these guys are small too. I'm small, so let's stick with the small guys. I could see that thought process.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you're talking about small retailers, yes.
Yeah.
But I might sound evil, but in this context, I imagine like mom and pop shop type of retailer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So, but here's the plus side of this. Now there's another option. At least you would know. Before we, so we had Heroku. There have been others all along the way. Every one of the other ones have pretty much disappeared. Yeah. Heroku still stands. Now GCR is sort of that next evolution of, here's my code, run it. Right? It's really getting to that point. I think eventually with Copilot, with AWS, you'll have that almost same level of, probably not as simple, because GCR is really that simple. But then this gives you just another option. It's like, I don't want to go through the hassle of getting all my VPC set up and doing all the things. I just need to go run my code. This is an option. That's all we can say.
I don't want that hassle, even when we're talking about thousands of engineers type of company.
For real. Yeah. That's all right. So let's move on. We talked about GCR for a moment. GCR now handles up to, and I didn't really finish out my sentence here, requests that run for up to an hour. Now, what you might say, well, why do you want to do an hour? Well, it's not so much that, but it could be maybe I'm doing streaming and I'm doing other things, like in this case of playing a video.
Machine learning.
Things that matter from time. Now, if you're not familiar with Steren, he is let me just do this live. Let's see how he has it listed here. He is the GCR product manager. You want something in GCR? Go talk to Steren. Just like if we want something in Copilot, Dave's one of the engineers on Copilot. Somehow or another, people actually listen to us. I don't understand why. But Steren's opened this thread. I'm going to scroll way the heck up. July 14th. Oh, by the way, that wasn't this year. That was a couple of years ago. Or actually, I think it was just last year. So there's just this long-running thread that he just keeps adding new things to. And one of the announcements this past week was server-side HTTP and gRPC streaming, and then the 3600 was right here. 3,600 seconds to return a request. I'm sorry. If an HTTP request takes an hour to return, you should be doing async. That shouldn't be a real thing. I'm sorry, but I know why it's there. I get it. It's just whatever. You're muted if you're talking.
It's just silly, and I don't think that hardly anybody does that.
Right, but I think the default prior to this was actually really short, wasn't it? It was less than a minute, which could be a little, for synchronous stuff, could be a little too short. I would hope not, but I could see it.
So the real problem there is that GCR, the way how it operates is based on HTTP requests, right?
Yeah.
And not on other metrics, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have a long-running process, then you're forced in a way to either keep sending requests, but there is no guarantee where they will end up, so that's not an option. So the only option you really have to keep that thing alive is to have a long-running request.
Yep.
Right. So when you said asynchronous, that wouldn't work really in GCR
that's
context,
true.
Because the second request, or checking the status of that would actually spin up a second GCR instance.
Correct.
Depends how you configure it. But anyway, it's complication, right?
Yeah.
You must assume that an instance might die after any request. So the only option is really to keep that request long running.
Right. Got a question here. Is GCR FAS or CAS?
CAS.
Andre, you need to go get our course. The links will be down.
It's contained as a service, and both of them, at least I place both of them under the umbrella of serverless, and then different flavors of serverless. And GCR is CAS. Now it can run a function, just to clarify. It can run whatever type of application you have, or a function or script or whatever you want, as long as it is in a container image.
Yep.
So it is actually. The answer is it's both, because
it is both.
It could be a function, but it could be a full monster type application also.
Yeah. And going back to what I was just saying, I just noticed it up here. They took it from 15 minutes to an hour. I would love to know, especially since he's the product manager, I'd like to understand what the use case, the business case was for them to bump it 4x. I mean,
what are the chances that an hour-long request will not be broken during that period?
Oh, man, that's just...
It's not going to happen.
No, that just doesn't... I'm sorry. I don't get it. I mean, I get it, but I don't get it. This was the news I was trying to come up with for last week, and I couldn't remember. Docker named Donnie Berkholz to the VP of Product. Of course, he also wrote his own press release. So that's always a good thing, right? In third person. Have you run into Donnie before?
Show me the face. I'm terrible with names. Yes, I met that guy at least a couple of times. We're not friends, so I don't know him well, but I know that I met him somewhere.
Yeah, so based on a lot of the people that were tweeting about this after the fact, everybody seemed really excited about this. But, you know, it's we're starting to see some life being breathed back into Docker, right?
Yes, it's getting out of the dark pit where it ended. And the change before Donnie was very positive. Now, what I suspect is that, you know, it's not a startup that was created yesterday, and it will need to figure out very, very soon how to produce some tangible results outside of excitement and stuff like that. Yeah. Mild excitement, I would say. It's not anymore. I mean, the excitement that I feel for Docker, there is definitely excitement, but we are not talking even. It's not even a fraction of the excitement that Docker created back in the day, right?
Right.
We are not talking about the same level. So, Donnie, you need to succeed. I mean, he might be the last VP of something in Docker if he fails.
That's a sad thought.
I mean, it's a reality.
Yeah.
At least the reality as I perceive it.
Yep. Okay. So this week, Netlify, which you may or may not be aware of who Netlify is, they're part of the jam, whatever the jam stack type stuff means. They're just part of that thing. And they introduced edge handlers, which most of the time we don't care about. But this gives you the ability to run your code on the edge of their network. That is a pretty big deal, I think. The more we can get stuff to the edge, the closer we can get our code running to the consumer, the better, without it being in their browser. That's the ultimate inside of their thing, but you probably don't have any comments on this. I think this is a pretty big deal, other than it's just JavaScript, because this is basically Lambda. And in fact, Netlify has had functions as a service, but it's basically they're wrapping around Lambda. So I imagine they're leveraging the Lambda on edge and just going on top of that and doing their own syntactic sugar on top of it. So you're probably not excited about this at all. But that's okay.
No,
I am.
No, but I'm neither excited or not excited.
It's just whatever it is, right?
It is what it is.
Yep. And the other reason why is we host our website on Netlify. Just because.
Oh, you see, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because it's free.
Then I'm very excited.
It's free. Yeah, it's free. It's free for the amount of traffic we're getting right now. What I would like to have is the opportunity to say, hey, look, we're still on Netlify and we're paying for it now because we're getting that much traffic. We still fall within the free tier. I want enough traffic to legitimate traffic. No bot traffic, please, but just legitimate traffic. This week you found a dashboard that doesn't suck.
Yeah,
hey, look,
I did.
Now the link. So people need to go watch the video, but in 1 minute, tell us why Kubeus doesn't suck.
Because it does something that is not simply things that I can do easier with kubectl, right? My mission was to find a UI, a dashboard, something that is not terminal, that will help me in one way or another, either by doing things that I normally don't do from a terminal, kubectl, what's or not, or by replacing some of the tasks I do with kubectl. And Kubeus Octant, which I explored before, failed to give me anything. And Kubeus did. The way how it shows warnings and alerts of potential issues in my cluster, it's awesome. The ability for me to personalize it and create my own alerts is also awesome. And the way how it represents the cluster somehow makes more sense to me than others. It's very simple, actually, really kind of namespaces, and then within each namespace you show stuff, but it just made sense.
That's good, right? It should be making sense. Now, what is our... And by the way, you kept that almost to a minute if I was watching.
Yeah.
What is the one thing that rules... What makes one of these UIs suck or not suck? What is the one thing?
So from my perspective, I start from kubectl being my modus operandi, right? And then whether something sucks or no is whether it will give me additional value or improvement compared to my current way of working. Kubectl, again, CLIs, right. Kubectl, Helm, this and that. If it doesn't give me any of those things, then it sucks. You cannot come up with a product that simply does not give a user additional value. Now, what some people will certainly say is, hey, not everybody is freak about terminals. Fair enough. But then if you're not so eager to use terminals, which you should, and you should be ashamed if you don't, but in that case, I can use, it needs to give me something more, something better than the Kubernetes dashboard, the one that is on Kubernetes IO site, right? The one that is bundled into almost everything and everybody knows. So at least, even if there is a user who doesn't use terminal and is still not fired from his job, then give me some additional value on top of de facto standard of Kubernetes dashboard. And Octant doesn't give me that. Kubeus does.
So two things I was looking for out of that, or actually the real answer I was looking for is, if you find a UI that allows you to mutate state, make changes live, that's the answer I was looking for. Right?
No,
that's
I
bad.
was trying to be generic, right? Kind of like,
yeah,
it could be anything. But yes, if there is a field like apply YAML, then that's a big no-no. And if actually, I had a fun thought, that a few hours ago, it came to my mind that I'm going to make my first contribution to Octant. I'm going to make a PR that,
to remove the button.
No, not to remove the button, but somebody mentioned to me in LinkedIn that when you click the delete button, there is some kind of warning, right? I'm going to suggest a change to that warning to be, do you really want to be fired? So when you click the delete button of some resource in Kubernetes, you have a very clear message. Do you really want to get fired?
Works for me. I said two things. The second thing that I was just thinking about was if you refuse to work from the command line, by making that decision, you've chosen to not use automation. Or you not so much as you've chosen not to use automation, but you have chosen to not allow yourself to go on vacation because nothing is going to work.
To be honest, I see value in having some kind of graphical editor for you to write YAML. I use Visual Studio Code, and that's basically doing the same thing as what you get when you go to Octant and say edit, right? Yes. It's a graphical interface to change some definition. Now, the problem with Octant compared to, let's say, me using Visual Studio is that what I write in Visual Studio ends up in Git. What somebody does in Octant ends up being randomly applied to the cluster without anybody else knowing who did what, why, and no reviews, nothing, right? None of the things that we're fighting for from development perspective. And writing YAML is the same as writing code, right? So if Octant would, for example, commit that change to Git, apart from applying, I would be less harsh to it. And this is opportunity. So all of you think about new project, give me a UI that allows me to edit state of my cluster, but just like many others, but commits those changes to Git. If you do that, I will be impressed. Nobody does that. And it should kind of, I think it would be awesome if UIs would commit changes to Git. They can apply them directly. After that, we don't need a GitOps operator of sorts. We don't need Argo CD or Flux to apply those changes. It's okay if you apply it from UI, but commit it first.
Yeah, and let's go back to the first thing we talked about today. I make a change to the YAML. I commit it to or it gets committed to the repo for me. Let's say we're using GitHub. GitHub checks kicks in. Maybe we've also signed up for checkmarks or Veracode or one of the others. It gets basically instead of having to have a second set of physical eyes to take a look at it, all of the second set of eyes are going through the GitHub checks. And only if everything passes, then does it get applied. That's more than okay, right? In fact, that's better than a second human looking at it because as I found out, I forget to do things. Not on purpose. I just forget. That model would be great.
Imagine the number of issues that can occur and can easily be avoided just by not applying change directly from a UI to the cluster.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Wait, are you saying I actually had a good idea today?
Oh, yeah. Even you have them sometimes.
Sometimes. Okay. But that's fine. Cheers to me. So in case you're watching the little scrolling thing happening down here as it goes this way, there's our Twitter handles and the website in case you want to. Oh, the website actually it's not the website, it's the Slack Workspace. If you're not a member of the Slack Workspace, go sign up. Completely free. We got lots of people in there. Time to go join up. You can ask questions there. You can bug us throughout the week. You can DM us. You can do all the things. It's just an open Slack thing. We've talked about maybe going with Discord, but we're going to stick with Slack for now. I was actually rewatching your session with Brett that happened last week. Brett Fisher, by the way, if you don't know who Brett is. We're on first name basis, and I've never met him. There were a lot of things that he said just from a streaming perspective that I thought were interesting, but you guys went down the whole GitOps thing, and I'm going to throw you under the bus live for right now. Are you ready? I'm giving you a warning that I'm going to throw you. You didn't even promote our You didn't even promote our podcast, and you were on there live with a guy that had lots of people.
Didn't I?
Nope.
I'm ashamed now. I'm really ashamed.
That's fine. It's just we got to build that. We have to build that muscle memory for you. Yeah. You didn't. That's fine.
I'm ashamed.
Yeah, don't be ashamed. It's not that big of a deal. Just remember next time.
I cannot control it. I cannot control it. We're going to turn red right now.
Okay, there you go. Now we're red. You're okay, whatever the word is. Doesn't matter. We'll move on from there. So my idea is good. The question is will anybody actually pick up on that idea? Not necessarily my idea, but the idea we're talking about of don't allow anything to be committed directly to your cluster, applied directly to your cluster. It has to go through some sort of intermediary. That should at least be an option, right?
Exactly.
I mean, talk about audit capabilities. That's great. Use Octant, use fill in the blank. That's great.
A lot of good things can be built on top of it, right? If you do that,
yeah.
It could be some kind of a dry run. It could show me some potential kind of implications of me doing that. It could show me the differences. Many things can be done through UI, except changing the state of the cluster directly. That's the only big no-no.
And the one word is key there, directly. We're not saying it can't change the state. It just can't do it by making the API calls directly. Now, here's another plus. Go ahead.
Let me rephrase it. It can even change directly. I can even live with that. But it cannot change state of the cluster without leaving trace about that change.
Right.
And we leave traces of changes of some definitions in Git today, right? But it could be even somewhere else. But you cannot do things without any trace of what you did. That's the thing.
Yeah. You shouldn't be doing anything without a trace of what you did. People do it all the time.
SSH, man. SSH.
Well, that's what history is for, unless you wipe out history when you log out, which you can do.
Yeah, but history is not really. Through history you see commands.
But you don't see parameters you pass. Yeah.
Yeah, and you that might reference files that do not exist anymore. It's not really full tracing. It's just history of the commands. It's not really that.
Yeah. So if anybody's got time this weekend, go ahead and create that new open source project. We'll give it a stamp of approval as soon as you release it. Right?
Exactly.
We're joking, but not joking. That would be that's a really nice. And I going back to, it's not necessarily on or off, but having the levels of control to where it's like, I know better than you. You don't need to be tracing anything. I don't need the overhead. Just let me work directly with it. Okay, fair enough. You can go to the far right-hand side to where there's the only way I'm going to get there is through some sort of call coming out of Git. And it could be something anywhere in between. Right?
Even should we kind of like now become the people we were complaining about in the last episode and abuse Hacktoberfest to spend those projects by the message, do you want to get fired? That would be cool, no? It wouldn't be spamming, really, because you really should get fired if you click that button, delete.
At VFarsic on Twitter. Go for it. I'll give you a thumbs up on the PR. So you've got a couple of conferences coming up. I had misspoke last week. So this week you had CDF. Was that the only one you had this week? I think it was.
So. I'm not following anymore what I do. I think it was, yeah.
That was this week. And coming up, you've got Europe Cloud Summit on the 19th of October. And then you've also got you have a CDF webinar happening on October 20th. The link for Europe Cloud Summit will be down below. We're still waiting on information for the webinar. I thought I saw it come through as well, but I didn't pull it out. So if we get it, we'll add it to the notes. Webinar. That's such a dirty word in 2020 right now. A webinar. Come to a live stream. A live stream is much better than a webinar.
I actually had that conversation with some people, and I think, the webinars should not exist in this day and age, especially now with confinement and what's not. It's not a webinar, it's a live stream. Because it is essentially the same thing.
Well, it depends. If people watch you and me, our presentations are much different. We don't do slides.
Yeah, but
no slides here.
You can live stream slides.
Well, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, I mean, you can delete the whole namespace in Kubernetes production as well.
Without putting it through Git. Yes, you can. That would be another thing somebody needs to do is come up with a wrapper around kubectl that basically emulates rm-rf/, so you can just delete the cluster. That would be pretty funny. That'd be a great open source project. I want to delete everything rm-rf/. You don't need sudo on it. You can just rm-rf/.
Isn't that what Minikube delete is for?
Yes, if you're running Minikube. What do you have in your hand there? What are you playing with?
Some stickers I took without thinking.
Oh, it's like, what are you playing with? It's like, we don't even have any stickers. We should get stickers sometime.
Yeah, we should.
We need better artwork though. My daughter's artwork was fine to get us started. We need real artwork. But I'm being lazy.
You have to speak person over here.
Yeah, I don't know. Got a question from Andre here. Thank you, Andre, for sending in this question. How to have some sort of dynamic volume provisioning in bare metal. Portworx, I think today would be the answer if you have the money, which they were just bought by another P word. I don't remember who it was. Pure? Was it Pure?
Yeah.
Or OpenEBS. I mean, if you're going to be in Amazon, we talked to, what was his name? We had him on because he's also the guy behind Litmus.
Or Rook.
Yeah, whatever. Huh? Rook?
Yeah. I mean, with NFS. Now, I'm not saying NFS is great and all those things, but you can even do dynamic provisioning directly with NFS, with or without Rook. Ceph.
That's okay. Just don't use EFS. If you're in AWS, don't use EFS because it's not real NFS.
Yeah, I somehow assume that when he says bare metal, it means on-prem.
Oh, he did say bare metal. That's correct. if you're bare metal and on-prem, I would look at Portworx to begin with. I think that would be the better solution because you're not going to want to home roll your storage. You're going to want support for storage. If you're paying especially if you're already paying for something like an EMC or NetApp or something else, get Portworx. And that's not an official thing about that. It's just they appear to have the best solution today, or at least from what we've seen. The guy's name that we talked was Uma Makura.
Yeah.
From Maya Data, which are the guys behind OpenEBS. I was trying to remember his name. It's like I can see his face, but I couldn't remember his name. Andre, hopefully that helps, even though that's not a great question or great answer. Great question, horrible answer. I would have to lean towards Portworx though. Today the answer would be Portworx, whatever today is. What is today? The 9th. Friday the 9th. Do you realize Halloween is on a Saturday this year?
Yeah, is it this Saturday?
No, it's the 31st. It's a few. You still have time to go buy candy. Now, whether or not that means the kids will actually get the candy if you're going to eat all the candy, so maybe I just need to remind you on the 30th so you don't go buy a big bag and start eating now. There was another joke there too, but I'm not going to go there for now. He wants a hybrid solution to work on-prem and on AWS Azure. Ooh.
I mean, that's a bit challenging because you might want to leverage whatever are the strengths of each of those providers. And you can make things in a way that it is transparent from user perspective, right? A user can have, I don't know, like fast persistent volume, a slow persistent volume, and highly available persistent volume storage classes.
Yeah.
And whether that storage class happens to use one thing in AWS and another thing in Azure requires a bit of work, but from user perspective and from perspective of everything else, it happens to be the same, right? That separation is actually very, very helpful.
Yeah. I want to say, and Andre finish up here is going to take a look at Portworx. I think Portworx gives us that same level of abstraction across no matter where you're at, if I remember right. I actually haven't done hands-on with it, but I ran into a number of clients that were using Portworx, and they were running multiple different platforms. They were primarily on-premise, though. But I would look into them, especially since they just got acquired. It's definitely worth a look. Anything else?
Shouldn't you be looking in companies before they get acquired?
Yeah.
And then invest.
Yeah. That would have been good.
That's what I would do if I would have any money to invest, but I don't. So life is easier.
Yep. And then we can talk about it without any kind of weird legal ramifications. Okay. We're almost at the top of the hour, so I think probably it's time for you to go eat dinner. It's time for me to get back to the office. And I think that's it. If you, again, if you haven't kept up with us throughout this ramble today, if you want to go check out our website, it's devopsparadox.com. And everything about us is there. You can get our contact information. All those things are there. In fact, if you really want to find out where to go, you can just go to devopsparadox.com/contact. And that's pretty much it. Do you have any videos scheduled for coming out next week?
Yes. I don't know
you
yet.
Got one?
No, I don't have one, but I'm committed to release one every Tuesday.
Okay.
I have an idea what it will be, but I learned my lesson, and I'm going to stop saying what it will be because it often ends up being something else. But
and
yes, something will be released this Tuesday.
Okay. And just in case you're not following him on YouTube, the videos that he's releasing are under the DevOps Toolkit series channel. It's not under DevOps Paradox. We keep that for the podcast and the live streams here. But if you want to follow up on his 20 minutes or less video series, I just gave it a name.
There is a list there called like that.
Yeah, you said 20 minutes or less, 20 minutes or less, but you don't actually have it in the title.
No.
SEO. But regardless, it's DevOps Toolkit series. You can also go to devopstoolkitseries.com and find out about the books and the courses that we have. Those help fund the Red Bull and pizza rage meals. And there's actually here, just pull it back up again. Let me go and give you the full screen here of there's the Red Bull. This is truth. It's not it's not just beer. When you buy courses and books, you buy him Red Bull. You're not buying him things to make it to where he can't work on the books and courses. Right? Oh, I forgot to click back to me. That's okay. All right. Everybody have a great weekend. We will be back next Friday at some point in time. Be watching on Thursday. If you're not following us on Twitter, you can follow us on, what's the best place? Probably DevOps Paradox is the place to look at on Twitter or on LinkedIn. That's where we do the post of where things come out. And if I remember to retweet it, I do. Victor always retweets it because he's much better at social media than I am.
You're joking.
No.
Okay. I'm so bad that you must be terrible then.
Yeah, it is. Basically, I can get things posted, but then I don't ever think to retweet it because, well, honestly, I don't have a tenth of the followers that you have. So I know my expressiveness through a retweet is going to mean nothing. So, all right, everybody. Have a great weekend. We will talk to you again next week as I find the right buttons to press about now.